Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, year one targets identified for Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders. And we also hear from you regarding mobile QB problems and a scolding of Chris Level. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again today. And I don't know if I anticipated having this to discuss as we wrap up the week. Maybe you did, but we got a Red Raider hoop schedule now to digest as Grant McCasland and company find out who the ops will be in year one of the McCasland era. And we knew that this was going to be a really interesting thing because obviously the Big 12 scheduling format is undergoing changes now with the holdovers and additions in the league for a year this time around, or I should say next time around. And obviously you'll have two departures, and we'll continue then in a new type of scheduling approach on the other side of that. So we knew that there was going to be some interesting conversation, I guess, to say the least, from all across the league as it relates to who you get, who you miss, and of course, who you're visiting, who you're hosting. There will be some you get both home and away, some you get one or the other. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how it shook out for Texas Tech. I think certainly what the headline is, probably for most Red Raider basketball fans by now, is our deepest sympathies to the state of Kansas. None of you get to see the Red Raiders in person, but we're not too torn up about that. In Lubbock, Texas, missing out on Allen Fieldhouse or the Octagon. I know that was a big headline, Chris, but what else is standing out to you about the schedule?
Yeah, we talked about this when it was kind of ending last year. I'll miss the round robin. I thought it was so clean and just so simple to grasp and understand, and just fair, and now with the numbers being what they are, you're right. It's not going to be that way, this year and really going forward because there'll be at least 12 teams in the league starting, next year when Texas and Oklahoma depart, and maybe there's more. We'll see, but. Yeah, I think keeping some of the home and homes regionally makes a lot of sense. I think they've indicated that they try to have geography in mind, and there's some regional rivalries. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense basketball wise not to have it home and home with TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma State going forward, and probably Houston too. You're not going to get that in year one, but yeah, the first thing that I looked at, to your point, was no trip to Fog Allen. I think some people may look at that and go, "Oh man, it's fun to because they're going to be preseason number one in the country." I just have only seen it work out one time, and I've seen right there in person. You've come close a few times, but more often than not, it is lopsided, and it's just a very difficult place to play. So. You could make the argument maybe the toughest place to play in the country. So the fact that you don't have to go play in one of the toughest places in the country, yes, big time reward if you can get it done, without a doubt. But it didn't hurt my feelings that you don't have to go to either one of the nicknamed arenas, right. Fog Allen or the Octagon of Doom. Yeah, and I would expect Kansas State to be pretty good as well, based on the way Jerome Tang and Uric, the former Texas Tech assistant, are recruiting. So. And I looked at it. Okay, so here's, if you want my honest opinion on what I looked at the schedule. We all look at it from how it affects us or what you're dealing with. And sometimes some of the basketball road trips are pretty difficult because it's a weeknight and you get home at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and it can take it out of you, whether you're a player, coach, broadcaster, whatever. And so I was just looking at the long road trips. Like West Virginia is always the tricky one because it's a long trip. And Ames is not so much, but those are, typically the two furthest ones. But no Cincinnati trip, no Provo trip. Now I'll make that Provo trip in football. That's a bit different. I should think that Joey's going to take his football team up a day early. I think just like with Wyoming because of the altitude. But basketball is a bit different because it's in and it's out. But it could be on a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever, and then you're staring at a game 2 or 3 days later. That's the difference. But your only lengthy road trips, Cowan, are the Morgantown one, and then you're going to Orlando. Other than that, everything is really regional, and I say that because these are the games that the Tech fans have been going to. You know, your Austins, your Wacos, your Fort Worths, your Stillwaters, and then now Houston. That's 5 of your road games right there. And then, you've got to go make a trip to Morgantown. And I meant I excluded Norman as well. You know, a lot of Tech fans have shown up to the Norman games as well because it's very close proximity to the Metroplex. So that's kind of how I viewed it. I won't miss having to go to the state of Kansas this year. Doesn't hurt my heart or hurt my feelings or anything like that. So I don't know what else you thought when you saw it, but that's kind of the way I looked at it.
The Kansas factor, I mean, leaps out immediately, obviously. But I didn't really consider what you described there, which I think is a great point. The road trips that you do have logistically are very manageable, but also might be an environment that could, I don't want to say be favorable to you, but a lot of Red Raiders have been showing up in those locales. You're absolutely right about that. The ones you get both home and away, Oklahoma State, Central Florida, Baylor, Texas Christian, Texas. The ones that are coming to Lubbock, but you won't visit, Cincinnati, Kansas, K-State, BYU. The ones you'll visit, but you won't host, Iowa State, Houston, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. So I'd almost call it a good break. I mean, I don't know what other way to look at it. We kind of looked at the football schedule this way, and I hate to even be in this frame of mind. I wish you were still in a position where you just play everybody and we never even considered scheduling, because this is not an exercise we ever went through really in years gone by. You look at it and it's like, oh yeah, okay, well, you're playing all the teams again, home and away. Terrific. You might think about like, okay, big Monday or Saturday afternoon or, you know, whatever it might be there. But this is a new exercise both in football and basketball season. And, you know, much like we talked about with the Red Raiders from a football perspective, feel like you got quite the hefty challenge there on the gridiron this time around. But while it will remain hefty, I'm not trying to spin it any other way than very difficult as life is in the Big 12 conference as a basketball team. Yes. I think there's some, I don't know, decent breaks in there.
Yeah, you know, and I was the other thing I was kind of looked at. I was like, you got lumped in with Central Florida in the home and home part, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah. Is that, you know, they needed to be lumped in with. I mean, because it would have made sense, I would think, and I'm sure there's reasons why. Why wasn't Houston in that group and not Central Florida?
Right.
If we're really, but maybe Central Florida needed another, you know, geography partner, if you will. I haven't, because I do know that Central Florida is the only school in this format that's going to play all the other new ones in a home and home, and obviously Texas Tech is a home and home as well, and so maybe they were trying to limit travel, I think, with them and all that. I'm not sure, but I thought that was interesting that, you know, because which one of these is not like the other.
Well, I know that BYU probably has this title of the most Western now, I guess, geographically speaking. But I thought the Orlando to Lubbock and Lubbock to Orlando might have just been a sick joke for somebody in the league office. Let's get these bookends out of here to meet up twice.
I hope we get to go see Mickey Mouse. I've made the flight from Lubbock to Orlando before going to Disney World a couple times with the family, and it's not a bad way. I would guess 3-ish hours. You know, obviously you have the time change and all that stuff, but you know, I think I'm starting to gather that, you know, Central. I've seen people really try to put you in the BYU future rivalry category. Have you seen these stories?
I've heard some talk. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some, it's like, I think there's people trying to look at, okay, a few years from now, what is going to be kind of a new sneaky rivalry? And I've seen Texas Tech and BYU connected. One of that is because there's a natural Mike Leach connection there. he spent so much time here. Then obviously he went to school there and was a rugby player at BYU and learned under Lavelle Edwards and on and on. And so that's the, people are trying to project a bit, but I think Central Florida also has a sneaky chance to be relevant to the Texas Tech fan. You're going to get them in football this year. You're getting a home and home with them in basketball. Their fans are either extremely passionate or very mouthy, depending on how you want to phrase it. I don't know if they have a nickname for their basketball venue, but the football stadium is called the Bounce House. So they've got a lot going on, and their chest is puffed out for sure. From a basketball standpoint too, don't sleep on these guys. They did just have somebody drafted fairly high in the first round of the NBA draft. So I think that they're not like some power, but they're not also some afterthought either. So maybe Central Florida has a chance to blossom for the Texas Tech fan and be fairly meaningful. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, even for the third or fourth pick, there's an athlete or two in the state of Florida. So I really wouldn't rule out any possibilities coming out of Orlando with these guys. Not that they're going to necessarily overtake, obviously, what we know to be those Florida brands, but good grief. That's one that you can anticipate competitively on whatever front, maybe really taking a large step forward because of the fertile recruiting grounds from within which they operate. Okay, can't wait to get it started. We do have a little bit of time, though. Just want to warn everybody. It's July 21st, and we're less than 60 days. We're less than 45, 57. I'm from Lamb County. Why did I try to get into math? From football kickoff. So we're getting back to football coming up ahead. We were talking making sense or not just a moment ago. And 4 cents, where do we go on a Friday? We go to the YouTube comments. We hear from you next on Locked On Texas Tech. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And if you want a championship team, you need championship parts, and they've all got to fit just right. And it's no different when it comes to your vehicle. Every part's got to fit just right, and that's where eBay Motors is stepping in. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits exactly right the first time, every time. Just head on over to ebaymotors.com, add your ride info to the My Garage portal, and look for the green check to know the part is an exact fit, or you're getting your money back. No risk. In sports or in life, confidence is the name of the game, and that's exactly what you're going to have when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, and with the right parts guaranteed, you'll be back in the game and on the road in no time. So get the right parts, the right fit, and at the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Always appreciate an opportunity to hear from Locked On Texas Tech viewers in the YouTube comments. Thanks for participating out there each and every day, mixing it up. Little virtual fur flying in the Locked On Texas Tech YouTube comments. And some interesting thoughts wanted to get to here today as we wrap up the week, Chris. We're going to get first to a football thought, which really, I got to tell you, I don't think this is a bad perspective here or a bad question delivered by our guy, Chad Pulford, 3653, who says, we never had a quarterback get hurt for like 15 years. As soon as we start running them, they get hurt every season, sometimes multiple times. Why do we keep beating our head against the wall expecting a different outcome? Chris, there's a few things to process here, I guess. This was kind of intriguing because obviously, when you did go through that great run of quarterbacks, you were not asking them to do a whole lot as ball carriers or physically in the open field. And I don't know if that's really what I've thought you've asked them to do, in the preceding decade, at least consistently or from an extended point of view. But obviously, it does seem like some things are changing, I guess, right now as to how you might be using your quarterback. What do you make of this thought? Because there may be some sense to it.
Well, I would say this: B.J. Simmons got hurt, Cliff Kingsbury got hurt, Cody Hodges missed some time. We remember the Taylor Potts, Stephen Sheffield injuries. So even in that run where we kind of remember it a certain way, there were certain. I mean, Graham Harrell smashed his hand, and it was broken. And he played, I think, the bowl game. His, let's see, I guess the 2008 season was basically a smashed, all kinds of broken bones in his hand. So. I understand the sentiment. I totally get it. I think we just have to remember that, like Alan Bowman in Tucson, Arizona, he's in the pocket and he gets sacked and landed on. It has nothing to do with him running. He just gets landed on his collarbone and it breaks. I think now Tyler Shuck 2 years ago in his first year here. Yeah, he's diving into the end zone in Austin, and that's when his first injury occurred. I think that last year it was way down the field against Murray State, and he just doesn't slide quick enough. But Baron Morton last year got dinged up. He was in the backfield, and he had a would-be pass rusher kind of too close to him, and he kind of landed down and kind of tweaked that ankle. Had nothing to do with him being a runner. It's a tough sport, and guys get hurt. And I would say, yeah, you've been on a weird run with not having a primary starter for however many years it's been. But, look around the league. This is something we've talked about on this show often. Most people in the league last year were dealing with an injury at quarterback. And whether that player missed a game or three or half the season – or the entire season in Chandler Morris's case at TCU, hence the reason you hear the name Max Duggan. Running as a QB is going to be a component of the game. You may not like it. You may not feel comfortable with it. Guys are going to continue to get dinged up. But this is going to be a component that Texas Tech and most schools in the country employ. Just the style here, and it's a component of in the red zone and short yardage that I just think if you aren't doing it, boy, you're really making it more difficult on yourself. And I look at like what did with Jalen Hurts last year in the NFL, and they play so many more games. But Jalen Hurts, and typically they don't let NFL guys because they're paying them so much. Get out and he ran for, I think, 13 touchdowns and 800 yards. So at all levels, it's just a component of the game. And I think I go back to, like Iowa State game last year, whenever Tyler Shuck kind of milks the clock and ends the game basically as a runner. And I just, yes, do you have to be smart about it? Absolutely. Do you have to be mindful of putting your QB in harm's way? Without a doubt. But it's sports, it's football. I think guys are going to get dinged up. But yeah, you want to tell Tyler, because how about going back to the OU game whenever Alan Bowman got hurt the first time, I think, with the collapsed lung. If he cuts it up the field, he walks in the end zone, and he decides to go out of bounds at the end of the first half, and he just gets popped. And then he comes out of the locker room and, he just made kind of a wrong decision. But so you have to, be smart and maybe it's easier for me to say it, but you have to tell a guy, hey man, don't be a competitor. Don't extra 2 yards, maybe go down, get out of bounds and you come off as soft or not tough or whatever. But
you got to live to fight another down.
Sometimes this is the smart play.
You got to live to fight another down. That context is important. Maybe a couple of things that play there to refute the comment or the perspective. If you're interested in doing that, maybe you agree with it totally, but a couple of things that play in that. Maybe it wasn't quite as clean as we want to remember it during that era. And then also, we can't assume during this recent stretch that those injuries have come exclusively on designed QB run plays, which would kind of lead to the problem, I guess, that's being described there in the question. And I I still don't look at these guys as like some overt turn to a running quarterback. I don't look at Baron Morton or like, are they capable in some moments? It sure seems like they are, and you want them to be, but dual threat, I'm not really putting them in that category, but interesting perspective, interesting question, and appreciate the thought there from CP 3653. Did I get it right? I don't know. I'm not going to show it again, so let's just act like I did. Okay, before we are out of here, Chris Level, present your knuckles so I can hit you with a ruler because you're being scolded in the YouTube comments. Wow, who knew Level had knuckle tats? If you're not watching on YouTube,
it's a ring.
You missed that.
Yeah,
I thought, what's spelled out there?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that on the. Okay. We're back with one more again from the YouTube comments. Next, a Chris Level scolding on Locked On Texas Tech. Always glad to have you along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you got this podcast so you never miss an episode. We're on the downhill run to football season, but I think, before kickoff, Chris, still plenty of time for something like this. There could be days where we're just too damn busy to get to a scolding for Chris Level from the YouTube comments, but that day is not today, my friends. So this is how we wrap up the week this week, hearing from our good friend Kim Coulter 4203, who has this to say. I really like this show. So we're off to a great start so far. I really like this show, but I've never seen a fellow Red Raider is afraid to talk about winning as much as Chris Level. I'm sorry for the negative comment because I genuinely like the show. Okay, stated that again. That's good. But as I've said in the past, it's almost as if he's embarrassed to be a Red Raider. Wreck 'em. Chris Level, what do you have to say for yourself?
So when you read this, I'm curious your opinion here. I mean, you do this show with me, and you and I have worked together for, I don't know, when we first met each other, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I don't know how long our relationship goes back, but I mean, I'm curious as to your take on this, and I guess I'm kind of missing. Maybe I need to go back and pay attention to the actual show that she commented on that we were doing. Because anyway, I want you to give your opinion on that. And again, if you think she's right, man, call me out on it.
It was July 20th, 2009, roughly, when you came floating into the room I was in on a cloud, and I think we first met. Just for proper context, I don't know what she's talking about. I think one of the best ways to digest this show, and you and I have more practice than anyone, we have to listen to the entirety of this thing every time. All right. So thoughts and prayers for us is to kind of just tune out every once in a while. And then you come back in. Then maybe you're dazed in traffic or wherever, you tune back out. Then you come back in. That's probably how I would take it in if I was a real consumer. Kim is one of our most active participants in the YouTube comment section, so we certainly appreciate her. She's been a loyal viewer for quite some time now. And on occasion, I've seen a comment like this before from Kim regarding a stance you might have taken. And I'll tell you, with 100% consistency, Chris, right up to this most recent one, every time I see it, I think, what the hell did he say? Because I'm never remembering anything that's too shameful, but maybe I'm missing it too. So we'll just ask for more feedback from the YouTube comments out there. If you're picking up what Kim is putting down, please let us know. But I think you properly, Chris, either as a lifelong Red Raider fan or a broadcaster, I think you properly tap the brakes, which is a good idea, I think, in just about all sports scenarios. So no, I got no beef.
And if you take that graphic off, I wore a tech shirt just for Kim, so I've got my right there. I mean, look, I think it would be bad of me with what I do if I had pom-poms all the time and I was cheerleader fanboy. I don't think that's how you do this job. I think you have to call things out. Now, I've never been embarrassed to be a Red Raider. In fact, I probably take major offense to that line of comment.
Scold you, Kim.
Yeah, no, but everybody
Okay.
is entitled to their opinion, and Kim may just not care for me or my opinion. That's fine. To each his own. But I appreciate her watching. But look, do we, and Calvin, you and I we can probably hint around it. There's been times when we've had these conversations about like football season coming up, and are we annoying everybody? Is Tech annoying everybody? Or like, ooh, this is heavy praise that they're being projected and all that. And like we try to paint both sides of those equations. Like, okay, here's some of the issues that could be in line for you, or here's some of the things you should be really excited about. But I've never been afraid of. Yeah, if I was afraid of winning or afraid of losing, I wouldn't have traveled up and down the roads for the last 15 years. And missing time with my family and get my ass kicked repeatedly, not that it's me, but just as an alum. But you just you pull your bootstraps up and you get back on the horse and you go. Yeah, give me another one. And if it's a beating, let's do it again. Because I've seen most of these programs really at one point or another their best and at some level kind of their worst.
Yes,
and both sports that I work with, but certainly not afraid of winning. I don't apologize for being a Tech alum or the fact that I'll never move away from Lubbock ever. It's what I've chosen to do for a living, and Calvin, to a certain extent, you have too. I mean, this is what we kind of do and we follow and what we care about, but no, I don't. So do I protect my emotions on occasion, or do I try to keep it real on occasion? Absolutely. I think
all occasions.
I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
Otherwise, is like being an analyst or having integrity with what you. Because how boring would it be if I sat up here and be like, "You're winning a national championship." Yeah, I mean, write it down. You're
winning the best,
and you do that every year. Yeah, with a phone call. And so I don't know. Maybe if that's what she's hinting at, I don't know, and maybe I'd love to hear from others.
We'll get some response here. I think, and we'll see what they have to say. Look, life as a Red Raider is a character building experience, and if you want to go full tilt, thinking this is the year, then by all means go full tilt. I will not, and I don't know if there'll ever be a year where I actually will, unless you're like coming off of that 12-0. National title run. And look, how foreign is a national title to me as a Tech fan? I don't even know how many games you'd have to win to get there. Certainly more than 12, so that's inaccurate. But you get the idea. I don't know what it would take, man, but I've been a lifelong Red Raider. I've got generations of Red Raiders in my family, and they have passed down the wisdom to temper my expectations heading into just about every season. This is Lubbock, Texas, baby, a drinking town with a football problem. So I don't think that status has changed in 2023, but maybe Joey McGuire is going to do something about it. Okay, I think I'm going to take back my tisk. You've convinced me that I actually think that you are not embarrassed to be a Red Raider. So, Kim, let's hear what you think about that, and the rest of you as well out there in the YouTube comments. Thanks to everybody who's out there every day making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And Chris, thank you for not being embarrassed to work with me, because that's really the most important thing.
We've been doing this. We're getting on about a year now. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I appreciate all listeners or viewers like Kim, whether she thinks I'm an idiot or not. But I certainly appreciate it. I think that's what makes this platform fun, is that we're not always all going to agree with each other or Calvin and I, but it's meant to entertain and inform and all that. And with that, I hope to see, everybody out at the arena. If you're watching this on a Friday, I hope to see everybody out at the arena tonight for more, Texas Tech entertainment, because I'm not embarrassed to go in that arena. I'm not embarrassed to put on that headset, and I'm not embarrassed of winning or losing. So that's
right.
Or to wear that right there. Yeah, right there.
And Chris is standing on the desk right now. So you've got us too amped up. We got to get out. We got to wrap this up before I get too fired up and just leap through a window.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. And thanks for joining us. As always, for Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. We'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.